Oh my, that cliffhanger they just left us on. So, this convict that was introduced at the, second half of this episode can detect parasites or others with, some form of psychic ability that's been, showcased for the majority of Parasyte. And at the end of the episode, Madhouse or Parasyte decides to cliffhanger us on that serious look the convict gave Izumi at the end. And I'm thinking, Parasyte? Always. It's always every single week when I sit down to watch this series, I say it every time, it feels 5 minutes. It's just 5 fucking minutes. That's all it feels like when I watch this series. I mean, I honestly would say I would recommend just waiting until the series is done and then marathon it, because that is how good this series is. It just drags you in, pulls you in, and you don't want to stop watching, but it forces you to stop watching because you have to wait for next week's episode. This is definitely a series I will wait until, it's done before I recommend it to others, because this series, it kills you. It stabs you in the heart with these cliffhangers, especially with how good the series is. So, here's the thing. With this episode of Parasyte, there is 2 main segments of this episode. The first half focuses on Reiko and her humanity, and then the second half focuses on, I'm guessing, the new arc we're getting into. So before I get into the next arc, the second half of this episode, I want to talk about the ideology, the ideals, and, the actual sense of humanity that Reiko had and showcased in the first half of the episode. So, I just want to take a moment to say, I'm kind of sad that Reiko died, I really am, because at the end of the day, she was one of the only parasites in the series that I had some form of attachment to besides Migi, and she was a very reoccurring character. She reoccurred all the time, and we got to kind of know her persona, her personality, stuff like that for the majority of the episodes, and with this episode, her entire development becomes full circled where we truly understand what she does and why she's done certain things and stuff like that, and how human some parasites really can be. And I like the, ideals and the ideology that was showcased in this episode when Reiko was actually talking to Izumi. She stated, humanity, or parasites, they're kind of 2 halves of the same whole. And she was saying, us parasites are very, very weak. Don't bully us. And when you actually heard that from her, I started thinking, she kind of has a point. I mean, parasites, her parasites are very dependent on the human host, the human body or other host, and they get bullied because, they're different and they feed on other prey and stuff like that. And for the majority of the series, there's always been this ideals and, perspective of how parasites are not really that different compared to other animals or, humans, because humans also eat meat and stuff like that. They prey upon other things, and that's pretty much what parasites do. And so you actually have it where this intelligent life form's coming in and saying, you're a bully, you're bullying us. I mean, you're treating us as if we're monsters and stuff like that when we're not really doing nothing different from what you all do. And that's pretty fucked up, and it's very intriguing when you start thinking about it like that, because when you hear how she says 2 halves of the same coin or the same whole, she's representing that humanity and parasites are not that much different. They're really not. And she says, kind of they are similar and they come from the same source. So to see this, it's just, it has me curious about where the series is going to go from this point onward. Or is there going to be some form of coexistence in the future when it comes to parasites? Because Migi and Izumi, right now, they're the perfect example of coexistence when it comes to parasites. Because Migi, as we see for the journey of the series, he slowly gained emotions and some form of, way, human thought process. He has become intelligent, but he also has kind of learned how to be more human. I mean, Migi denies this, but it's kind of obvious when you see the journey through Parasyte, and in this episode is also showcased that Migi has changed quite a bit, so I want to dive into that. With this episode, what I really noticed about this episode, the first segment, Reiko's death actually gave development to Izumi, not just in the showcase of him accepting his mother's death and stuff like that and moving on, but it was actually there to showcase how much Migi has developed alongside of Izumi. Let me explain. So, when you saw Reiko dying, and, you know, she gives the child to Izumi and all that, she's like, I'm very thankful. It was a pleasure, you know, and all that type of stuff. She was pretty much showing emotions, like emotions that parasites should not show at all. And Reiko was actually showing emotions, and that's unheard of when it comes to parasites. It is. Even Migi was quite shocked. Like, he acted very shocked when he saw how Reiko was willing to give up her life, and she was thankful for dying just to save her child and protect it. And Migi couldn't really understand, or he did understand it, but he was shocked about it, how Reiko was able to understand humanity to that extent and give up her own life to save her child, and which plays back into the earlier episodes with motherly instinct and how motherly instinct overpowers the parasite's actual instincts. And to see this, you gotta love how the build up, the foreshadowing, and the overall ideals and ideologies of these different perspectives of parasites and humanity continue to play a major role in the series. And that was pretty much the main segment and the main goal of the first half of the episode. It was to show you that also Izumi and Migi has been affected by what Reiko just showed, because Migi, as we know, he shouldn't be able to show emotions, but Izumi, as we know, when he got his heart, you know, fixed in that, like, you know, Migi fixed his heart, you had it to where Izumi lost all ability to actually really show emotions or cry. Like, there was an actual episode dedicated in the series that was representing that Izumi can no longer cry. I remember that episode. It was like right after Izumi's mother's death. And to see in this episode that Izumi cried, it showcased that he has now moved on, and Migi, in fact, is changing too, as well. Because we do know the reason why Izumi was not able to show emotions was because Migi's cells were traversing inside of Izumi's head, in his body, and it was kind of fucking up his, you know, psyche and stuff like that. And so to see how he was allowed to show emotions, like he actually cried, shows you that Migi is also changing at a psychological level. And I'm quite interested to see what direction this is going to take, because this is a major turning point in Migi's character, along with Izumi. Izumi learned acceptance, and Migi learned how to show emotions. Like, it's official now. Migi really does know how to show emotions. But, moving past that, getting into the second half of the episode, besides the baby part and Reiko giving her hopes of humanity and her will of the parasites and stuff to Izumi, you have it in the second half to where we go straight into the next arc. You have this new character introduced that's a convict, and he's a serial killer. That's pretty much what we find out. I don't think his name was actually introduced in this episode, but regardless of that, the dude, he can detect other psychics and stuff like that. And this makes us know that the government is aware of other psychics, like Murano and stuff like that. And so, they're searching for psychics and people to actually help out for the hunt of parasites, and in turn, they looked at Izumi thinking he might be a psychic because he was able to know where certain parasites were. Like, he knew where Reiko was, and Reiko, you know, was attracted to him and stuff like that. So, the government assumed that Izumi had some form of psychic ability, and which in turn most likely is going to lead it to where Migi is going to be discovered by this dude, because the dude at the end, he gave Izumi the death look, like the death stare. Like, when you have this convicted convict that's a serial killer give you that type of look, oh shit, that's not good. That's not fucking good. Ooh, no, 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 no. That's not good at all. So, to see that, it just shows you that Migi and Izumi might be discovered, probably next week. And if it does happen, I wonder what the overall general reaction of what, you know, the government's gonna do, because at the end of the day, you know, people can't really understand other people unless you've been in that situation. And that's one of the main fundamentals when it comes to humanity. And so the government most likely is going to look at Migi as if he's an abomination, and Izumi also as an abomination, since he's no longer human or parasite, since he's cut right down the middle. And I wonder what, you know, general reaction the government will do to that. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I mean, how'd you feel about this week's episode of Parasyte? I love you all so much. Please be safe. Chibi out.